A young billionaire stops his car at a deserted gas station and is shocked to find a little girl taking care of twins in the restroom. The revelations that follow change his life forever. The merciless July sun bore down on the black Tesla Model S parked on the shoulder. Jack Pearson glared irritably at the dead digital dashboard, where just minutes earlier, the GPS had been guiding him back to Connecticut. The air conditioning was still running, struggling against the 95 degrees Fahrenheit that turned the asphalt into a wavering mirage. "Great," he muttered, loosening his Hermes tie. "Just perfect." His phone, an ultra-secret Peartech prototype, showed no signal. The meeting in New York had gone on longer than planned, and now, at 32, the tech industry billionaire found himself effectively lost. A rusty sign caught his attention. "Miles Gas Station, 200 yards. Jack sighed, restarting the car. The electric motor hummed softly, and he guided the vehicle down the secondary road until he spotted the abandoned building. The station was a forgotten relic from the 80s. The gas pumps, corroded by rust, cast elongated shadows on the cracked concrete. The convenience store's windows were shattered, and wild vines had begun to reclaim the peeling walls. Jack parked under the metal canopy that once sheltered the pumps. The place was completely deserted, not that he'd expected otherwise. He needed to use the restroom, and, with luck, the GPS would work again once he restarted the car. "I can't believe I'm doing this," he muttered, eyeing the station's outdoor restroom. The metal door, covered in faded graffiti, was slightly ajar. That's when he heard it. A low murmur, almost imperceptible, a child's voice. Jack froze, his hand inches from the bathroom door. In his years building Peartech, he had learned to trust his instincts. The same instincts that had warned him, too late, about his first partner's betrayal, were now shouting that something was wrong. "Shh, Emma, it's going to be okay. Ethan, hand me another diaper." The voice was young. Far too young. Jack gently pushed the door open. The late afternoon light spilled into the dark space, revealing a scene that would stay with him forever. 3 children filled the small area. The oldest, a girl who couldn't have been more than 6 and was kneeling on the dirty floor. On top of a Frozen-themed school backpack, strategically opened and laid out, she was changing a baby's diaper. Another baby, identical to the first, held a small flashlight in chubby hands, illuminating the surreal scene. "Hoosh!" The word escaped before he could hold it back. The reaction was immediate. The older girl moved with surprising agility, placing herself between Jack and the babies. Her intense green eyes, fierce and determined, met his with a ferocity that made him step back half a pace. "Please," she said, her voice trembling slightly but with surprising resolve, "don't call the police." Jack felt his phone weigh heavily in his dress pants pocket. His hand moved instinctively toward it, a movement not lost on the girl. "My name is Lily," she continued quickly, words spilling out in an anxious rush. "These are Ethan and Emma. They're my siblings." She swallowed hard, and Jack saw something flash in her eyes: pain, fear, determination. "Our mother. She died 3 days ago. We don't have anyone else." The twins, as if sensing the tension in the air, stayed unusually quiet. They had to be about 2 years old, Jack calculated. Ethan was still clutching the flashlight, though it trembled visibly in his little hands. Emma, her diaper partially changed, clung to her older sister's leg. Jack Pearson hadn't reached his status by being careless. Every decision in his life was calculated, measured, evaluated from every possible angle. Iceheart, the newspapers had dubbed him after his famous hostile takeover of Robotech, when he fired 300 employees in a single day. The algorithm, people whispered in the halls of Peartech, referring to his apparent inability to make emotionally driven decisions. But something about this scene hit him like a punch to the gut. Maybe it was the frozen backpack, so absurdly childish and innocent in that desolate setting, or the way Lily positioned herself, small but fierce, protecting her siblings. Or maybe the twins' eyes, wide and scared, yet trusting their older sister completely. "How long have you been here?" he found himself asking, his voice softer than usual. Lily hesitated, clearly debating whether she could trust him. "Since last night," she finally answered. "We were on our way to our aunt's house in Boston, but—" She bit her lip, and Jack noted that her clothes, though dirty, were of good quality. "We ran out of money, and I don't remember her address." Jack observed the small group more closely. Despite the circumstances, the children were relatively well cared for. Lily had tied her own brown hair into a clumsy ponytail, but the twins' hair was neatly combed. Their clothes, though rumpled, were clean. The school backpack contained diapers, wipes, some changes of clothes, and he noticed with a pang a very well-loved teddy bear. "I'm thirsty," Ethan mumbled, lowering the flashlight. "Lily." Jack saw the pain in Lily's eyes when she glanced at the half-empty water bottle near the backpack. "It'll cool down soon," she promised her brother, but Jack could see the fear in her gaze. The late afternoon heat was unrelenting, and they clearly had few resources. It was at that moment that something inside him snapped. In his penthouse apartment in Connecticut, 3 empty bedrooms served only to impress occasional visitors. His closet was bigger than many apartments. The gourmet kitchen, immaculate and modern, was rarely used for anything but a lonely breakfast. "Lily," he said gently, kneeling to her level, not caring that his Italian suit touched the grimy floor. "I live in Connecticut. I have a big apartment, with empty rooms and—" He took a deep breath, hardly believing what he was about to propose. "You can stay there, for now, until we find your aunt." Lily's eyes widened, a mix of hope and distrust dancing in them. "How, you're not going to call the police?" "No," Jack promised, surprised by the firmness in his own voice. "I won't call the police." Lily studied his face for a long moment, with an intensity that made Jack wonder if she could see right through his carefully built walls, straight to his soul. "How do we know we can trust you?" she finally asked. Jack almost laughed. It was the same question investors always asked, though never so directly. "You don't," he answered honestly, "just like I don't know if I can trust you. But—" He looked at the twins, who were watching the exchange with sleepy eyes. "Sometimes we have to trust someone." To his surprise, Lily turned to Ethan. "What do you think?" she asked her brother. Ethan lowered the flashlight and studied Jack with a comically serious expression on his round face. "He looks like a prince," he declared finally, making Emma laugh for the first time. A small smile, the first, curved Lily's lips. "What's your name?" "Jack. Jack Pearson." "Okay, mister." "Jack," she said, and there was something so formal, so grown up in her little voice that it made his heart ache. "We'll trust you." As he helped Lily gather their few belongings, all of which fit into 2 small backpacks, Jack wondered exactly when his life had completely derailed. In a few hours, he'd have to finalize a crucial presentation for investors that could determine Peartech's future. His lawyers would freak out when they learned what he was doing. His sleek penthouse, a sanctuary of minimalism and technology, was nowhere near childproof. But when Emma, sleepy and trusting, raised her arms for him to carry her to the car, Jack knew there was no turning back. Lily arranged the Tesla's back seat with quiet competence, settling Ethan in, who was already hugging the worn teddy bear. "Seatbelt," Jack gently reminded. "I know," she replied, already fastening the buckles. "Mum always said safety first." Jack started the car, the electric engine silent in the scorching afternoon. On the dashboard, the GPS blinked back to life as if nothing had happened. The route to his apartment lit up clearly on the screen. "Lily?" "Yes, Mr. Jack?" "Thank you for trusting me." In the rearview mirror, he saw a small smile tug at her lips again. "Thank you for helping us." The sun was beginning to set as the Tesla pulled away from the abandoned station. In the back seat, Ethan was already asleep, hugging his teddy bear tightly. Emma was fighting off slumber, her eyes blinking slower each time. Lily remained alert, her green eyes occasionally meeting Jack's in the mirror. Jack Pearson, the man known as Iceheart, felt something melt inside his chest. His penthouse would never be the same. His life would never be the same. And for the first time in years, he was completely at peace with the decision he could neither control nor calculate. The future was uncertain, but something told him that these three children, found in a gas station bathroom on a scorching July afternoon, were exactly what he hadn't known he needed in his perfectly organized and painfully empty life. The private elevator at the Skyline Tower opened directly into the penthouse foyer. Jack typed the security code with one hand, while holding a sleeping Emma over his shoulder with the other. Lily came in behind him, guiding a sleepy Ethan by the hand. "Wow," the girl whispered, her green eyes surveying the minimalist space. The apartment was a masterpiece of contemporary design. Floor-to-ceiling glass panels offered a panoramic view of Connecticut, now dotted with the early evening lights. The decor in shades of grey and white was punctuated by strategically placed modern art pieces. Everything there had a purpose, a specific place. "The bedrooms are this way," Jack indicated, leading them down a hallway lit by recessed LEDs. Lily followed silently, her steps almost inaudible on the Italian marble floor. Jack could feel her eyes taking in every detail, the black and white photographs on the walls, the abstract sculptures in the niches, the control panel that regulated everything from temperature to light intensity. "This can be your room," he said, opening a door. "It has a connected bathroom and—" "There are two beds," Ethan exclaimed, suddenly awake, running to the bed near the window. The guest room, like the rest of the apartment, followed the same minimalist aesthetic. Two queen-size beds with pristine white sheets, a designer armchair in the corner, and automatic curtains controlled by a tablet. "Lily can stay in the room next door," Jack suggested, laying Emma carefully on one of the beds. "It's smaller, but—" "I'd rather stay with them," the girl replied quickly, already taking off her brother's shoes. They don't sleep well alone." Jack nodded, noticing how her small hands moved with efficient care, settling Ethan in the other bed. "I'll get you clean towels and—" "Mr. Jack," Lily interrupted softly, so as not to wake Emma. Is there a way to leave a light on? Ethan doesn't like the dark." Something about the way she said that, like she was asking for a huge favor, made Jack's heart clench. "Of course," he replied, adjusting the panel to a soft glow. "You can control it here, see? Brighter, dimmer." Lily watched his instructions closely, her eyes shining with interest in the technology. By the time Jack finished the demonstration, she had already memorized the sequence. "Thank you, Mr. Jack," she said formally, and then, after a pause, "You have a really beautiful home." Jack gave a slight smile. "Apartment," he automatically corrected. "And thank you. Now try to get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." Leaving the room, Jack left the door ajar. Through the gap, he saw Lily checking on her siblings once more before lying down between the two beds, still fully clothed. In his office, Jack ran a hand over his face, feeling the beginnings of stubble. His reflection in the window showed a man who seemed to have aged years in the past few hours. His dress shirt, always immaculate, was rumpled and bore a drool stain where Emma had slept. He picked up his phone, now with a full signal, and dialed a number he never thought he'd need so urgently. "Elite Babysitting Services. Good evening." "Good evening. I need someone with experience to start tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" The operator sounded surprised. "Sir, we usually do interviews and—" "I'll pay double the normal fee," Jack interrupted. "I need someone experienced with small children, 2-year-old twins and a 6-year-old. There was a pause on the other end. "I have a professional who could start tomorrow, Sarah Montgomery. 15 years of experience, specializing in young children." "Perfect. Send me the details by email." After finalizing the arrangements, Jack allowed himself to sink into his Italian-designed ergonomic chair. The silence of the apartment, once comforting, now felt strangely oppressive. Morning arrived with sounds his apartment had never heard before. "Ethan, no, Mr. Jack won't like it if you—" The sound of something crashing made Jack open his eyes abruptly. For a moment, he was disoriented in his own room. Then memories of the previous day rushed back like a tsunami. He threw on a robe over his silk pajamas and followed the sounds to the living room. The scene he found made his heart skip a beat. Ethan stood in the middle of his meticulously arranged living room, surrounded by designer pillows that had once been artfully placed on his sofa. Emma, delighted by her brother's mess, clapped her hands and laughed. Lily was frantically trying to gather the pillows, her face pale as she noticed Jack. Sorry, Mr. Jack," she stammered. I tried to stop him, but... "Look, Mr. Jack," Ethan called out happily, tossing another pillow. "It's a fort." Jack opened his mouth to scold them, but something about Emma's carefree laugh, the first he had heard from her, made him pause. The Italian designer pillows, each worth more than many entire sofas, now formed an impromptu fortress in his immaculate living room. The doorbell rang, saving him from having to reply. Sarah Montgomery was exactly as her references promised. In her early 40s, hair elegantly graying, she exuded a calm competence that immediately impressed Jack. "Mr. Pearson," she greeted him professionally, her experienced eyes already taking in the living room situation. "I see we have a fort under construction." To Jack's surprise, Lily seemed to relax slightly at Sarah's arrival. Maybe it was the maternal tone in her voice, or how she immediately crouched down to the twins' level. "What an impressive fort," Sarah commented, making Ethan beam with pride. "But how about we build an even bigger one after breakfast?" The day passed in a blur of activities that Jack observed from his office. Sarah quickly established a routine: breakfast, his gourmet kitchen finally being used, educational activities, lunch, and a nap for the twins. But not even Sarah's professionalism could entirely contain the energy of 3 children. Jack found tiny fingerprints on his glass panels, crayon scribbles on important documents, and the toys Sarah had brought scattered in the most unlikely corners. "Mr. Jack," Lily's voice startled him in his office late that afternoon. "Who are the people in these photos?" She pointed to the black and white photos on the wall, his personal collection of urban portraits. They're people in New York," he replied, realizing for the first time how strange these photos must look to a child. Serious faces in grayscale, captured in moments of urban solitude. "They look sad," Lily noted, tilting her head thoughtfully. Jack had never thought of that. The photos were considered artworks, praised by critics for their deep urban melancholy. "Why don't you have any happy pictures?" she asked innocently. The question caught him off guard. Why, indeed? His apartment, which he had always considered the pinnacle of refinement, suddenly seemed cold through Lily's eyes. Night brought new challenges. Even with Sarah leaving after dinner, promising to return early the next morning, the sounds of the apartment were different. Small feet running down the hallway, muffled laughter, the occasional cry quickly hushed. Jack was in his bedroom, checking emails on his tablet, when he heard it. A soft melody, almost a whisper. Over the rainbow, way up high. Following the sound, he found the children's door slightly ajar. Lily was sitting between the twins' beds, humming softly. Emma held her stuffed bunny, eyes heavy with sleep. Ethan was already asleep, clutching one of his new toy cars. "There's a land that I heard of, once in a lullaby." Lily's voice was sweet and a bit off-key, but there was so much love in every note that Jack felt a lump form in his throat. For a moment, he stood there, unseen in the dim hallway, watching that small moment of familial intimacy. His penthouse, worth millions, with its spectacular view and exclusive art, had never witnessed anything so precious as that simple lullaby. Back in his room, Jack couldn't focus on his emails. The apartment sounded different now. Where there had once been silence, there was life. Where there had been perfect order, there was chaos. Where there had been solitude masked as sophistication, there was now... A sudden cry interrupted his thoughts. Before he could react, he heard Lily's light footsteps and her gentle voice calming whoever had woken up. His penthouse would never be the same, he thought, and for the first time that didn't seem like a bad thing. Lying in his king-size bed, surrounded by all the luxury money could buy, Jack Pearson realized that his perfectly organized space had been, all this time, perfectly empty. The fingerprints on the glass, the scattered toys, the laughter and tears. They were signs of life, of humanity, of warmth. His penthouse was finally becoming a home, and he, the ice heart of Silicon Valley, was slowly beginning to melt. Jack woke to the sound of his alarm at 5:30 a.m., as usual. For a moment, in his still dark room, everything felt normal. Then he heard it, muffled laughter coming from the kitchen. He slipped on his silk robe over his pajamas and followed the sounds. In the kitchen, he found Sarah already preparing breakfast, while Lily helped the twins with their cereal bowls. "Good morning, Mr. Jack," Ethan called out cheerfully, spilling milk on the Italian marble table. "Sorry about the noise," Sarah said, efficiently cleaning the spill. "Someone here woke up with a lot of energy today." Jack nodded absent-mindedly, his eyes fixed on his once sacred morning space, now turned into a cereal war zone. His morning routine had always been as precise as a Swiss watch: 30 minutes on the treadmill, an espresso from his imported machine, the digital newspaper on his custom tablet. "Mr. Jack wants some Fruit Loops," Lily offered politely, holding the colorful box that definitely hadn't been in his pantry the day before. "No, thank you. They're really good," she insisted, her green eyes serious. "Mom said even grown-ups need colors at breakfast." Something about the way she mentioned her mother made Jack pause. Against all his better judgment, he extended his fine French porcelain bowl. Just a little. Lily's smile was worth every disruption to his impeccable routine. By 8:45, Jack was in his office, adjusting his Hermes tie in front of the computer screen. The video conference with investors in Tokyo would start in 15 minutes. Outside, he could hear Sarah organizing some activity with the children. "Let's make a really nice drawing for Mr. Jack," he heard the nanny suggest, but very quietly, because he has an important meeting. Jack smiled slightly, appreciating Sarah's professionalism. In just 2 days, she had turned the initial chaos into a somewhat manageable routine, almost manageable. The computer screen lit up precisely at 9 Grifa. Serious faces of Japanese executives filled the high-definition monitor. "Ohayo gozaimasu," Jack greeted, maintaining perfect posture. "Thank you all for joining." That's when he heard it, the unmistakable sound of little feet running down the hallway. "Ethan, no," Sarah's hushed voice. Jack kept his professional smile, continuing his presentation. Peartech was about to launch a new line of augmented reality devices. The projected figures were impressive. The office doorknob turned slowly. "As you can see on the chart," Jack went on, his heart racing, "our projection for the 3rd quarter. Mr. Jack?" Ethan burst into the office like a tiny whirlwind, clutching a colorful drawing. In his rush to show off his artwork, he bumped into the side table that held a Murano glass sculpture, a unique piece, commissioned especially for his office. The world seemed to go into slow motion. Jack saw the sculpture wobble, catching the last rays of sunlight before its inevitable fall. He saw Sarah at the door, horrified. He saw the shocked faces of the Japanese executives on the screen. The sound of shattering glass was deafening. "Gomen nasai," Jack began to apologize to the investors, but then Ethan was standing amidst the shards, his wide eyes fixed on Jack. His lower lip began to tremble, and large tears formed. The drawing, now Jack could see it clearly, depicted 5 stick figures. 3 small, 1 tall in a suit, presumably him, and another that must be Sarah. I just wanted to show our family," Ethan sobbed. Family. The word hit Jack like lightning. There he was, about to close a multi-million-dollar deal, and all this little boy wanted was to show his drawing of our family. And then, to everyone's astonishment, including his own, Jack Pearson began to laugh. Not a subdued, professional laugh. A genuine laugh that started in his chest and burst out of his throat, the kind of laugh his office had never heard. "Daijoubu desu," he told the stunned investors, still smiling. "Sometimes art needs to be reinvented." Sarah had already entered the office and picked Ethan up, carefully avoiding the glass shards. But before she could leave, Jack gestured for her to wait. "Gentlemen," he addressed the executives. "My apologies for the interruption. This is Ethan, our newest art consultant." To his surprise, he saw smiles on the once serious faces on the screen. The oldest executive even waved at the boy. "Kawaii desu ne," another remarked. And Jack could have sworn he saw a child's photo discreetly placed on one of their desks. The meeting continued, but something had changed. The usual tension had been broken, quite literally, along with the sculpture. Jack found himself gesturing more, smiling more. When he mentioned the family potential of the new devices, he wasn't just reciting statistics. Sarah stood in the doorway, Ethan still in her arms, looking thoughtful. In her 15 years as a nanny for wealthy families, she had never seen such a subtle and significant transformation. After the video conference ended, with the Japanese more enthusiastic than she had ever seen in previous meetings, Jack got up and walked over to Ethan. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jack," the boy mumbled, still sniffling. "I didn't mean to break—" "Hey," Jack interrupted gently, taking the crumpled drawing from the little hands. "How about we hang this up right here?" He pointed to the wall where the expensive abstract print had once hung. "I think it'll look better than the sculpture." Ethan's smile lit up the room. That night, after Sarah had left and the children were in bed, Jack stayed in his office, gazing at the drawing on the wall. The stick figures all wore huge smiles, with red hearts floating around them. His phone rang. It was Marcus, his CFO. "Jack, the Japanese just sent the contract. They increased the investment by 30%. "What did you do in that meeting?" Jack smiled, his eyes still on the drawing. "Let's just say I had a bit of help from a specialized consultant." "Consultant? Which consultant?" "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." As he explained the situation to his stunned CFO, Jack realized that his two worlds, the corporate one and this newly discovered family world, might not be so incompatible after all. The Murano glass sculpture had been unique, irreplaceable. But in its place now was something far more valuable, a messy crayon drawing of a makeshift family, brimming with love. And for the first time in his career, Jack Pearson, the algorithm of Silicon Valley, realized that some of the best business decisions don't come from spreadsheets or projections, but from the heart, even if that heart was only just starting to thaw. After the video conference incident, something subtle began to change in the penthouse. It wasn't a dramatic overhaul. The place still retained its minimalist elegance, the surfaces still gleamed, and the automated systems still worked with military precision. It was the little details that Jack gradually started noticing. One particularly hectic morning, while rushing down the hallway on a conference call about market projections, he stopped short. Lily was in the laundry room with Sarah, her small hands neatly folding a stack of clothes. The focused furrow of her brow reminded him of himself reviewing contracts, and he almost smiled. "Like this or Sarah?" she asked, showing off a perfectly folded t-shirt. "Perfect, your dear," the nanny replied, and Jack noticed the pride in the girl's eyes. "Mr. Pearson, are you there?" The voice on the phone brought him back to reality. "Yes, go on," he replied, but his gaze lingered a moment longer on the domestic scene. The next day, during a call with the West Coast, Jack noticed another pattern. Every time he walked down the hallway, Ethan would stop whatever he was doing to smile and wave at him. It didn't matter if Jack was deep in a discussion about algorithms or market share. The boy always seemed thrilled to see him. At first, Jack just nodded distractedly. But at some point, he couldn't say exactly when, he began to return the smiles. Tiny discreet waves, a subtle wink during less serious calls. Emma, however, began the most subtle invasion of all. It started with a purple scribble slipped under his office door. Jack found it during a break between meetings, crooked lines that vaguely resembled a cat or maybe a dog. His first instinct was to throw it away, to keep his workspace immaculate. But something made him hesitate. The next day, another drawing appeared. This time, bright circles that Emma proudly identified as family when he ran into her in the hallway. "This is you, Mr. Jack," she pointed to a large blue circle. "Blue because you wear a lot of blue suits." Jack tucked the drawing in his desk drawer. Soon it became a collection. Drawings appeared daily, each more colorful than the last. Jack bought a special folder to keep them, hidden among financial reports and contracts. Mealtimes, previously a purely functional event in his schedule, became a fascinating study in family dynamics. Jack began having dinner at the kitchen table with the children, watching their interactions over the top of his tablet. "I don't want broccoli," Ethan declared one evening, pushing the vegetable to the edge of his plate. "But you have to eat it," Lily reasoned patiently. "Look, do it like this." She cut her own broccoli into tiny pieces, mixing them with mashed potatoes. "See, now it's a magic forest covered in snow." Jack watched, fascinated, as Ethan considered his sister's strategy before copying it. "Mr. Jack is eating broccoli too," Emma pointed out, making everyone look at his practically untouched plate. Caught off guard, Jack found himself imitating Lily's magic forest method, to the twins' delight. The children's laughter was another enigma. Sometimes they'd burst into giggles over things he couldn't understand. Mispronounced words, a particular face, an inside joke that seemed hilarious only to them. "What's so funny?" he found himself asking one night after an especially intense round of laughter. "It's just," Lily tried to explain between giggles. "Ethan said the moon looks like cheese, and Emma said then the stars must be crumbs, and—" The explanation made no logical sense, but Jack found himself smiling anyway. One afternoon, returning early from a cancelled meeting, he found Sarah setting up an impromptu picnic on the balcony. The children were sitting on a checkered blanket. Where had she found that? Eating star-shaped sandwiches. "Mr. Jack," Ethan called. "Come sit with us." His first instinct was to refuse. There were emails to answer, reports to review. But the late afternoon sun was pleasant, and Lily's hopeful smile. "Just for 5 minutes," he relented, sitting awkwardly on the blanket. 5 minutes turned into an hour. Jack discovered that star-shaped sandwiches really did taste different, that clouds could look like dragons or unicorns if you tried, and that the children's laughter fit perfectly with the gentle breeze. That night, tidying his office, Jack found another of Emma's drawings. This time the family of colorful circles was having a picnic. The big blue circle representing him was smiling. Stowing the picture in his special folder, Jack realized that something was changing inside him. The part of him that always prioritized spreadsheets over people, profits over laughter, was slowly making room for something new. In his closet, among perfectly aligned Italian suits, now hung a dinosaur print tie, a gift from Ethan on one of his outings with Sarah. In the sleek, minimalist bathroom, rubber ducks sat alongside his imported toiletries. His work briefcase now carried, in addition to million-dollar contracts, carefully preserved colorful drawings. Jack Pearson, the man who built an empire on cold logic and calculated decisions, was learning a new language. A language made of morning smiles, of broccoli turned into magical forests, of star-shaped sandwiches. A language, he realized now, his heart had always known but had forgotten how to speak. And with every small moment, each saved drawing, each returned smile, each shared laugh, that language became more natural, more necessary, like a code that had always been there, waiting to be deciphered. The sky over Connecticut darkened quickly that day, heavy clouds turning afternoon into premature night. From his penthouse office, Jack watched nature's spectacle while wrapping up a video conference. "And with these projections, gentlemen," a particularly loud thunderclap interrupted him, rattling the apartment's windows. Sarah had left early, worried about getting home before the storm. Jack assured her he'd be fine with the children. After all, his apartment had state-of-the-art backup systems. What could go wrong? "Mr. Jack," Lily's voice came from the office door, "I think it's going to storm hard." "I'm almost done here," he replied, noticing how she was nervously clutching the hem of her shirt. "Everything okay?" Before she could answer, another crack of thunder shook the building. The lights flickered once or twice. "Gentlemen, I think we need to wrap this up," Jack said quickly to the executives on the screen. "We'll continue tomorrow." He had barely hung up when the first blackout hit the neighborhood. For a few seconds, everything was plunged into darkness. Then, as expected, The apartment's emergency systems kicked in. "See?" Jack smiled at Lily, who was still by the door. "We have backups for everything here." That's when the systems failed. The darkness that followed was absolute. The huge windows, in which provided so much natural light by day, now only reflected the occasional lightning flashes. "Jack!" The shout came from the twins' room. It was the first time they'd called him without misters in front, he noted as he groped his way through the dark hallway. He found Ethan and Emma in the middle of the bedroom, clinging to each other. Rain now battered the windows with force, creating scary shadows on the walls. "Hey, it's all right," he tried to reassure them, his voice sounding strangely loud in the dark. "It's just a storm." A deafening clap of thunder interrupted, and suddenly he had two children wrapped around his legs. "Mr. Jack," Emma sobbed, "I'm scared." For a moment, Jack Pearson, CEO of hundreds of employees, was at a complete loss for how to comfort a frightened child. Let's all go to my room," he suggested, remembering he had some unopened scented candles in his suite. Carrying Emma and guiding Ethan by the hand, with Lily close behind, Jack led the small group through the dark hallway. His room, at least, offered a partial view of the city, with flashes of lightning providing sporadic illumination. "Here," he said, finally finding the candles. With slightly trembling hands, he lit 3, creating a small circle of golden light. The twins were still shaking, now huddled on his king-size bed. Lily sat beside them, but Jack could see she was scared too. "You know," he began, surprising even himself, "this reminds me of a story." 3 pairs of eyes turned to him in the dim glow. "What story?" Ethan asked, his small voice trembling. Jack swallowed. There was no actual story, but those trusting eyes, expecting him to make everything okay. "The story of the brave little bear," he improvised, sitting at the edge of the bed. "Have you heard it?" The children shook their heads no. "Well," Jack continued, his mind racing, "once upon a time, there was a little bear who lived in a magic forest. He had a really nice house, full of technology, just like ours." "Did the bear have a tablet?" Emma asked, already less scared. Yes," Jack smiled. "And he also had an automatic light system, like ours." "What happened then?" Lily scooted closer, interested. "One day, a huge storm hit the forest," Jack went on, as a flash of lightning punctuated his story perfectly. "All the lights went out, all the systems failed." "Just like now," Ethan interrupted, clutching his own teddy bear. "Exactly like now. But do you know what the little bear discovered?" The children leaned forward, waiting. "He discovered he didn't need automatic lights or tablets to feel safe, because he had something way more important." "What?" 3 voices asked in unison. "He had friends," Jack answered softly. "A very clever squirrel," he smiled at Lily, "and 2 bunny twins who always stuck together." "Like us?" Emma exclaimed. "And what did they do during the storm?" Lily asked, already getting into the spirit of the story. "Well," Jack hesitated. "They built a blanket fort," Lily suggested, "with covers, like Sarah taught us." "Yeah," Ethan agreed, perking up. And the bear could tell them stories. Before Jack realized it, the children were already in motion. Lily, with impressive efficiency, began arranging the imported goose-down pillows in a circle. Emma brought her stuffed bunny to keep the bear company, while Ethan held his teddy. "And so," Jack continued, watching in wonder as his perfectly organized bedroom transformed into an impromptu campsite covered with Egyptian cotton sheets, "the little bear discovered that sometimes the best things happen when all the systems fail." "Like now?" Lily asked quietly, her green eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "Like now," Jack confirmed, surprised by how true the words felt. The storm raged on outside, but inside the improvised fort, a magical world was unfolding. Lily added details to the story. The squirrel, apparently, was an expert fort builder. The twins provided sound effects for each thunderclap, turning fear into a game. And Jack discovered that stories made up on the spot could be far more special than any financial report. At some point in the night, between the 3rd and 4th story, now with everyone actively participating, Jack realized something fundamental had changed. Emma had fallen asleep in his lap, her small body utterly relaxed, trusting him completely for safety. Ethan fought sleep, determined to know if the bear really had a waterproof tablet. Lily, leaning against his side, occasionally corrected details of the story. "No, Mr. Jack, squirrels don't eat pizza." The storm still howled outside, but inside that makeshift fort, Jack Pearson, the ice heart of Silicon Valley, experienced a completely new feeling. It was a sense of being needed, not the cold business kind of need, where he was valued for strategic brilliance or tough decisions. A deeper, more fundamental need. Here, on this dark night, 3 little hearts needed him, not for his money or power, but simply for being him, for his presence, for silly bedtime stories, for arms that could keep them safe from scary storms. When everyone finally fell asleep, huddled on his designer Italian bed, Jack stayed awake for a long time, watching their faces lit by flickering candlelight. His high-tech apartment had failed spectacularly that night. Every backup system, every cutting-edge automation, none had worked as they should. And yet, somehow, it had been perfect. Because sometimes, he was beginning to learn, the greatest connections happen precisely when all systems fail. When there's nothing but darkness, improvised stories, and hearts beating in unison. Outside, the storm began to wane, but inside Jack's chest, something new and powerful was only just beginning to grow. The Louis Vuitton suitcase lay open on Jack's bed, clothes carefully folded, waiting to be packed. In his closet, 3 suits hung ready for his trip to Silicon Valley, a crucial presentation for investors that could double Peartech's value. "Mr. Jack?" Sarah's voice interrupted him as he checked his itinerary. "I think we need to talk." Something in the nanny's tone made him look up from his tablet immediately. "It's Lily," Sarah went on, looking worried. "She's not well. She's had a fever since lunchtime." Jack frowned. "Did you give her any medicine?" "Yes, but it's not coming down." "And she barely touched her dinner." "I'm sure you can handle this," Jack replied, returning his attention to the tablet. "My flight leaves early tomorrow, and this presentation—" "Mr. Pearson," Sarah interrupted, using her most professional tone, "I really think you need to see her." Something in Sarah's insistence made him pause. With a sigh, Jack got up and followed her to the children's room. Lily was in bed, her cheeks flushed from fever. The twins played quietly on the rug, casting worried glances at their sister. "Hey," Jack said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," Lily answered, but her voice was weak. "You're leaving tomorrow, right?" I heard Sarah say. Typical Lily, Jack thought, worrying about others even when she was sick. "It's just a meeting," he lied, surprised at himself. It was much more than just a meeting. It was potentially the biggest deal of his career. "Sarah will take good care of us," Lily assured him, her feverish green eyes wavering. "Don't worry about me." Jack felt something twist painfully in his chest at those words, a 6-year-old girl trying not to be a burden to him. "Get some rest," was all he could manage before heading back to his room. Night crept by slowly. Jack tried to focus on the last details of his presentation, but his thoughts kept returning to the children's room. Sarah had left reluctantly after he insisted he could handle things. Around 2 in the morning, a sound woke him. "Mommy! Mommy!" Jack leapt up, following the voice to the children's room. Lily tossed in bed, her face damp with sweat. "Lily!" he said, touching her forehead. She was burning up. "Mom, it hurts," she muttered, her half-open eyes not seeming to recognize him. Something inside Jack began to crack. "Shh, it's going to be okay," he whispered, scooping her into his arms. Her tiny body was frighteningly hot. He went to the bathroom, turned on a lukewarm shower. Fully dressed, he stepped under the water with her. "Mom used to sing," Lily mumbled in her delirium, "when I got sick." The crack within Jack grew wider. Memories he had long buried came flooding back. His own mother singing to him during nights of fever, His father, always so strong, crying silently in the hospital corridor when she became sick for the last time. "Please," he whispered, not sure to whom, "please let her be okay." The twins appeared at the bathroom door, alarmed by the commotion. "Mr. Jack?" Ethan asked, his voice tiny. "Is Lily going to be all right?" It was the final straw. Something inside Jack, something he had built up over years, brick by brick after his parents' deaths, simply collapsed. The tears came first in silence, mixing with the shower's water. Then they turned into sobs that shook his entire body. "I'm sorry," he murmured against Lily's wet hair. "I'm so sorry for almost leaving." To his surprise, he felt small arms wrap around his legs. The twins, still in pajamas, had stepped into the shower with him and Lily. "Don't cry, Mr. Jack," Emma pleaded, her tiny voice trembling. "Yeah," Ethan agreed. "Lily's strong. Just like you." Jack slid down until he was sitting on the shower floor, still holding Lily. The twins huddled against him, all soaking wet, forming a scene that might have been comical if it weren't so deeply moving. It was there, sitting on the floor of his Italian marble bathroom, fully dressed and drenched, with 3 children clinging to him, that Jack Pearson finally understood. He understood why he'd kept everyone at arm's length since his parents' death. He understood why he'd buried himself in numbers and spreadsheets, building a fortress of professional success around his heart. And he understood with painful clarity that fortress had just crumbled completely. With trembling hands, he pulled his soaked phone from his pocket. "Jennifer, sorry for calling so late. Cancel my trip to Silicon Valley. Yes, all the meetings. No, it can't be rescheduled tomorrow. I don't know when it can be rescheduled. And Jennifer, I need the number for the best children's hospital in the area." Now, hanging up, Jack looked at the 3 children. Lily was still burning with fever, but calmer. The twins, wet and shivering slightly, clung tight to him. "Let's get dried off," he said softly, "and then we're going on a little trip." "Where to?" Emma asked, as he wrapped them in his softest Egyptian cotton towels. "Somewhere they'll take care of Lily," he replied, already grabbing dry clothes for them. "And I'm staying with you the whole time. Promise?" Ethan asked, his big eyes locked on Jack's. "I promise." It was a promise that went far beyond that night, and Jack knew it. A promise never again to build walls around his heart. Never again to pretend that numbers mattered more than hugs, that contracts outweighed smiles. As he dressed Lily, who now trembled with chills, Jack thought of all the moments from the past weeks, the drawings in his drawer, the improvised stories during the storm, Ethan's proud smiles, Lily's wise questions, Emma's spontaneous hugs. They weren't just children he had found at an abandoned gas station. They were a second chance, a chance to feel again, to love again, to be human again. "Mr. Jack," Lily murmured, her feverish eyes finding his. "Stay with me." "Always," he replied, his voice husky with emotion. "I'll always stay with you." And so, in the silent, early morning hours, Jack Pearson, the man who had built an empire by avoiding emotional connections, discovered that some things were more valuable than all the success in the world. His armor had finally broken. And in its place, a long-dormant heart began to beat again, stronger and more honestly than ever before. The Children's Medical Center of Connecticut was an imposing glass and steel structure, but to Jack it felt like an intimidating fortress as he carried Lily through the emergency room corridors. The twins followed close behind, holding Sarah's hands. She had met them at the entrance after Jack's desperate call. "Pneumonia," Dr. Roberts diagnosed after a series of tests. "Quite severe. We'll need to admit her." Jack watched through the glass as the medical team got Lily settled in a private room. Her little face was partially covered by an oxygen mask, and various monitors beeped around her. "Mr. Jack!" Emma tugged at his still damp pant leg. "Is Lily going to be okay?" He crouched down, picking the little girl up. "Yes, sweetie. The doctors here are the best." "How do you know?" Ethan asked, his big eyes filled with worry. "Because I checked on my tablet," Jack replied automatically. then realized he really had. At some point between the shower and the hospital, he had looked up rankings, reviews, case histories, his business instincts now put to use for something far more important than any deal. The first 24 hours were the toughest. Lily's fever resisted the medication, and her breathing remained labored. Jack hardly left her side, leaving the room only when absolutely necessary. "Mr. Jack," Lily asked weakly on the second night, her voice muffled by the oxygen mask, "tell me a story. Which one do you want to hear? The bear one? The storm one?" Jack smiled, holding her small hand. "Remember the brave bear? Well, he got sick once, too." And so began a new version of the story, where the bear had to be strong during his stay in the forest hospital, cared for by a wise owl doctor and a very kind squirrel nurse. On the third day, Lily showed signs of improvement. Her fever finally broke, and the doctors reduced her oxygen support. Jack was mid-story, now about how the bear received visits from the twin bunnies at the hospital, when a knock on the door interrupted. "Mr. Pearson, I'm Michelle Thompson, the hospital's social worker. Can we talk for a moment?" Jack felt his heart freeze. Michelle was a middle-aged woman with a kind but firm expression, holding a clipboard that looked ominously official. "Sure," he replied, kissing Lily's forehead before following Michelle to a small meeting room. "Mr. Pearson," she began, scanning her notes, "I'm a bit concerned about the children's legal situation. We haven't found any record of guardianship or formal custody." Jack took a deep breath. He knew this moment would come eventually. "It's complicated," he began. "I found them." As Jack explained the circumstances of meeting the children at the gas station, he saw Michelle's expression grow more serious. "Mr. Pearson, I understand your good intentions, but what you did was extremely irregular. With no proper documentation, no legal process." She paused. "I'm required to notify Child Protective Services." "No," the word came out stronger than he intended. "Please, they're safe with me. I have the resources. I can provide everything they need." "It's not about resources, Mr. Pearson. It's about legal procedures. The children must be placed under the state's care until we can locate relatives or find a suitable permanent arrangement." Jack felt the world spin. The thought of losing the children, no more twins' laughter, no more Lily's proud smiles, was unbearable. "Give me a chance," he pleaded, his voice trembling slightly. "I can start the adoption process right away. I have the best lawyer—" "Mr. Pearson, please," he interrupted, a vulnerability in his voice that surprised even himself. "Those kids, they're my family now." Michelle studied him for a long moment. "I have to do my job, Mr. Pearson." "But," she hesitated, "I can give you 48 hours before making the official notification. Use that time wisely." Jack didn't waste a second. In the hospital corridor, he made 3 calls in rapid succession. To Jennifer and his personal assistant, ordering her to find the best adoption lawyers, to his accountant, asking for all his financial documentation, and to Sarah. "I need your help," he said as soon as she answered. "I need your testimony on how I've been caring for the children." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Sarah replied without hesitation. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. While lawyers worked on the initial documents for an emergency custody request, Jack split his time between Lily's room and meetings with the legal team. "Mr. Jack?" Ethan's voice surprised him during one of those meetings. The boy had slipped away from Sarah and found the makeshift conference room. "Why did that lady say we're leaving?" Jack froze. The lawyers exchanged worried looks. "No one's going anywhere," Jack said firmly, picking Ethan up. "I promise." "I want to stay with you," Ethan declared, hugging his neck. "You're our daddy now." The words hit Jack like a thunderbolt, daddy. It was the first time any of them had called him that, even indirectly. The lawyers present exchanged glances again, but this time with a different spark in their eyes. One of them was already jotting notes furiously. "That could help," he murmured to Jack. The children's expressed wishes carry considerable weight. The next 48 hours were a race against time. Jack barely slept, alternating between moments with Lily, who was gradually recovering, and meetings with attorneys and social workers. Sarah proved invaluable, giving a detailed statement of the changes she had observed in both Jack and the children. "I've never seen such a profound transformation," she told the evaluation team, "in the children, who've blossomed under his care, and in him as well." By the end of Michelle's deadline, Jack had managed to file an emergency petition for provisional custody, backed by a mountain of paperwork, his financial resources, suitability of his living space, professional history, testimonies from Sarah and other staff, even building security footage showing his dedication to the kids. "Mr. Pearson," Michelle called him after reviewing the material, "this is impressive, but we still have to follow proper procedures." "I understand," Jack interrupted gently, "and I'll do whatever it takes. Fill out every form, do every interview. Because those children deserve a home, and he swallowed hard, "I need them as much as they need me." Michelle studied him for a long time before nodding. "I'll recommend that the children remain in your care during the evaluation process. Perito," she added firmly, "will be monitoring closely." That night, after the lawyers finally left and the twins slept on a pull-out bed next to Lily's hospital bed, Jack allowed himself to relax a little. "Mr. Jack," Lily called drowsily. "Yes." "Are you really going to be our dad?" Jack felt tears well up in his eyes. "If you want me to," he replied softly. "I do," she whispered. But, can I still remember my mom too?" Jack felt his heart twist. "Of course you can," he said, his voice thick. "Always. And you know what? I'd love to hear stories about her." Lily smiled, her eyes heavy with sleep. "She would have liked you, because you tell stories just like her." When Lily finally fell asleep, Jack stayed up watching the three children. In a matter of days, his world had turned upside down again, but this time, instead of building higher walls, he was fighting to tear them all down. Because some battles he finally understood were worth any sacrifice. And this one, the battle for his new family, was the most important of all. Jack set up his laptop in the small hospital table space, trying to find an angle that wouldn't reveal the children's colorful drawings taped on the wall behind him. In 5 minutes, he had a video conference with the PearTech board, the first since he abruptly cancelled his Silicon Valley trip. Lily slept peacefully in her hospital bed, still on assisted breathing but much better than before. The twins were with Sarah at the hospital playground, giving Jack the quiet he needed for the meeting. The laptop screen lit up, showing the stern faces of the board members. Marcus, his CFO, spoke first. "Jack, we need to discuss your recent priorities." Jack took a deep breath. He'd known this moment would come. "Canceling the Silicon Valley meeting was just the beginning," another board member interjected. "Our investors are concerned about your absence from the company." "Absence?" Jack repeated, keeping his voice calm but firm. "I've been present at all major meetings remotely. The last quarter's figures—" "It's not about figures, Jack," Marcus cut him off. "It's about commitment, dedication. The Jack Pearson we know would never have walked away from a critical meeting for personal issues." A heart monitor beeped softly in the background. Jack glanced at Lily, sleeping peacefully, before returning his gaze to the screen. "You're right," he said, surprising them. "I've changed, and do you know why? Because that little girl over there," he tilted the laptop slightly to show Lily, "has taught me more about leadership in a few weeks than I learned in years of MBA. "Jack," Marcus tried to interrupt. "No, hear me out. Have you seen a 6-year-old take care of 2 younger siblings on her own?" "I have. You want to know what real responsibility looks like? It's when people literally depend on you to survive. Not shareholders, not investors, children." The silence that followed was palpable. Jack continued. "And you know what I realized? Our employees are parents, too. Mums, dads, people with families who depend on them. And what do we offer them? Endless work hours, unrealistic expectations of devotion. This is the tech industry, Jack," another board member argued. "It's always been like this." "What if it could be different?" Jack leaned forward. "What if we could be pioneers? not just in technology but in humanity. He quickly opened some files on his tablet. I have a complete plan here to transform PearTech, on-site childcare with qualified professionals, extended parental leave, not just maternity but paternity too, flexible hours for parents, real family benefits. That would cost a fortune, Marcus protested. And make us the most sought-after company in Silicon Valley, Jack retorted. Imagine the best talent choosing PearTech not just for the salaries, but because they can have a real family life. Brilliant moms and dads currently out of the workforce could return because they finally have a way to balance career and family. He paused, noticing some board members looked thoughtful. Moreover, he went on, I've already calculated the financial impact. The initial cost is significant, yes, but the drop in turnover, the rise in productivity when people aren't constantly worried about their kids, the gain in loyalty and commitment, the numbers add up. Still, Jack, Marcus insisted, your own situation, 3 children all of a sudden. Without proper legal process, the shareholders are worried about your stability. Jack smiled, a blend of sadness and resolve. Do you know the last time I cried? He asked, surprising everyone with such a personal question. It was when my parents died. I was 17 after that. I built this persona, Iceheart, the algorithm, and it worked. We built an empire. He paused, looking at Lily again. But 3 nights ago, when this little girl was delirious with fever, calling for the mom she lost, I cried again. And I realized something. We're not algorithms. We're humans. And our company should reflect that. The silence that followed was different from before, less tense, more reflective. Last week, a quiet board member finally spoke up. I missed my daughter's first ballet recital. I was in a meeting that could have been an email. Others began to share similar stories, lost moments, important childhood events sacrificed for meetings that had seemed urgent at the time. I'm not saying we turn PearTech into a daycare, Jack clarified. I'm proposing we become leaders of a new business model, one that acknowledges our employees are whole people, with families, with needs beyond work. He opened more files on his tablet. Here are case studies from European companies that have implemented similar policies. The results are impressive. Increased productivity, talent retention, innovation. When people don't have to constantly choose between work and family, they give their best in both. The meeting went on for another hour, with heated discussions about costs, implementation, and impact on company culture. But Jack noticed a gradual shift in tone, from open skepticism to cautious curiosity. When he finally ended the call, he was exhausted but satisfied. He hadn't won every battle, but he'd planted important seeds. Mr. Jack, Lily's sleepy voice startled him. Were you talking about work? I was, he smiled, adjusting her blanket. I was talking about how you taught me to be a better leader. Me? She asked, confused. Yes, you... Did you know leadership isn't about being the strongest or the smartest? It's about taking care of people. The way you take care of the twins. Lily seemed to mull this over. Like how you take care of us now. Exactly, Jack said, feeling his heart clench. And you know something. I'm going to try to do that in my company too. Help other families stay together. Like ours. Our family. The words warmed his heart. Yes, sweetheart. Just like ours. That night, after the twins returned and everyone had settled in to sleep, Jack stayed awake in his makeshift office. But he wasn't reviewing financial spreadsheets or market reports. He was designing a model daycare for PearTech, complete with spaces for different ages, nursing areas, restrooms for parents and children. He was rewriting HR policies, transforming the company's culture from the inside out. Because some transformations, he was learning, start with a high fever and a broken heart, but end up changing the entire world. The penthouse had never seemed so quiet as it did the morning Lily came home from the hospital. Jack carried her gently from the car to the elevator, noticing how fragile she still seemed, even after recovering. "Welcome home," he said softly when the elevator doors opened. Lily's gasp of surprise echoed in the foyer. "Surprise? Sarah, the twins, and Jennifer, who had become an unexpected ally, stood beneath a colorful banner that read, "Welcome Home, Lily." Balloons floated around the once minimalist space, and a delicious smell of freshly baked cookies filled the air. "We made cookies," Ethan announced proudly. "I mean Sarah made them, but we helped." Jack placed Lily gently on the sofa, now decked out with bright cushions and a cozy blanket. Emma immediately snuggled beside her sister, while Ethan began showing off all the drawings they had made during her absence. "Mr. Jack," Sarah said discreetly, "would you like to see what we did with the extra room?" Jack followed her to what used to be a space reserved for important video conferences. When he opened the door, his eyes widened. The room had been completely transformed. The austere walls now featured a mural of trees and forest animals. A plush rug with geometric patterns covered the once cold floor. Low shelves held children's books and educational toys. In one corner, a small table with colorful chairs waited for art and study time. "Jennifer helped organize everything," Sarah explained. "We thought the kids needed a space of their own." Jack felt his throat tighten. It was perfect. Not the kind of perfection he used to chase, but a warm, vibrant perfection. The next few days brought a new routine to the apartment. Jack discovered his schedule needed complete reorganization to include moments that now felt essential. Family breakfast, bedtime reading, times to just be present. One morning, as he prepared for a video conference, he heard soft crying from the bathroom. "Emma," he called, tapping gently on the door. "You okay?" "My hair's all tangled," she sniffled, "and Lily still can't help me because she's not fully recovered." Jack hesitated for only a second before entering. "Can I try?" Emma eyed his large hands skeptically but nodded. What followed was a YouTube tutorial on his tablet, showing him how to make braids as he tried to replicate the movements in Emma's hair. The final result was far from perfect, but her radiant smile made every minute worthwhile. "Now you're a braiding expert," she declared, hugging his legs before running off. The visits from social workers were tense moments. Michelle Thompson, in particular, had a knack for showing up during the most chaotic times. Like the afternoon she found Jack on the living room floor wearing a princess tiara, a gift from Emma, while trying to assemble a jigsaw puzzle with the twins, or when Lily decided she wanted to learn to cook, and the gourmet kitchen looked like it had been hit by a flour tornado. But instead of finding fault, Michelle seemed increasingly impressed by the changes she witnessed. "Mr. Pearson," she remarked during one visit, "you really have transformed this place." Jack followed her gaze around the penthouse, where once there had been a minimalist art gallery, now children's drawings shared space with expensive art. The Italian designer sofa was covered in bright cushions and toys. His glass coffee table had been replaced by a sturdier one, perfect for board games. "The kids transformed it," he corrected softly. "I just let myself be transformed along with it." In the evenings, after dinner, now always served at the kitchen table, everyone together, Jack established a special ritual. Story time began with everyone gathering in the new kids' space, which they had nicknamed the Enchanted Forest. "Tell the bear story again," Ethan always requested, but now the tale had evolved. The bear no longer lived alone in his techie house. He had a family, a very clever squirrel and two mischievous bunny twins that filled his days with adventures. One night, after tucking the children in, Jack found Lily still awake, flipping through a photo album Sarah had helped her assemble. "They're pictures of Mom," she explained when he sat down next to her. "Sarah helped me organize them." Jack looked at the photographs. A young, smiling woman with 3 small children. His heart ached. "She was really pretty," he said softly. "Yeah," Lily agreed. "And you know what? I think she'd be happy to see us now." "Why?" "Because she always said family isn't just who you're born with. It's who chooses to stay together." Jack pulled Lily into a hug, tears threatening his eyes. "Your mom was very wise." "Just like you," she yawned, smiling. "But don't tell Ethan I said that. He already thinks you know everything just because you beat that hard level on the video game." Jack laughed, recalling the hours he spent learning Mario Kart with Ethan, his son, and how strange and wonderful it was to think of him that way, had been so proud when Jack finally conquered Rainbow Road. The adoption process advanced slowly, with endless paperwork and interviews. But whenever Jack felt overwhelmed, a moment with the children renewed his resolve, like when Emma brought him a new drawing for his office to make it look happier, or when Ethan insisted on showing off his reading progress, even if it meant interrupting an important call, or when Lily, with her wisdom beyond her years, simply sat beside him in silence, offering wordless support during late-night work sessions. One morning, Michelle made a surprise visit and found the apartment in complete disarray. Jack had attempted pancakes, a culinary disaster that left batter everywhere. The twins were covered in flour, and Lily was trying, through fits of laughter, to clean up. Rather than appearing disapproving, Michelle smiled. "You know, Mr. Pearson," she said, as she jotted notes, "when I first took this case, I was skeptical. A single executive with no child-rearing experience wanting to adopt 3 at once." Jack tensed, bracing for the verdict. "But now," she continued, "I see that sometimes the most unlikely families are exactly the ones that belong together." That night, after another story hour session with the children finally asleep, Jack stayed up in his office, but he wasn't working. He was looking at a recent photo, him and the 3 children at the park, all smiling, casually happy. Next to it was a stack of adoption paperwork awaiting his signature. In the photo, he barely recognized himself, not because his hair was slightly disheveled or he was dressed casually. It was his smile, a smile that had vanished after his parents' deaths and now, finally, had returned. Because sometimes, he was learning, the family you find is exactly the family you always needed. And his once lonely, sophisticated penthouse had finally become what it was always meant to be: a home. The email arrived during dinner, making Jack's phone buzz insistently on the kitchen table. In the past, he would have grabbed it immediately. Now, however, he was busy trying to convince Ethan that broccoli wasn't alien poison. "But it's green," the boy protested. "Like your favorite superhero's suit," Jack reasoned, using his newly honed parental negotiation skills. Only after the kids were in bed, following the nightly storytime tradition, did Jack finally check his phone. The email subject made him drop into his chair. Urgent. Internal investigation. Questionable practices in the AI division. As he read the detailed report, Jack felt his stomach sink. During his absence, while focusing on the children, especially during Lily's hospital stay, the board had approved a series of significant changes. The Artificial Intelligence Division, his most ambitious project, had begun using practices that bordered on unethical. "We need to maximize results," read an email from Marcus, his CFO. "With Jack unavailable, we have to make tough decisions." The following hours turned into a deep dive into documents. Peartech, the company he built on principles of ethical innovation, now faced accusations of using user data without proper consent, manipulating algorithms to favor certain clients, and ignoring security protocols for the sake of efficiency. "Mr. Jack," Lily's voice surprised him. It was nearly midnight, and she stood in the office doorway in her unicorn pajamas. "Hey, sweetheart, why aren't you asleep?" "I got thirsty," she said, stepping closer. "You look sad." Jack tried to smile, but Lily was already next to him, peeking curiously at the scattered papers. "Work problems," he explained vaguely. "Can I help?" she offered. "Sarah says I'm really good at organizing." Before Jack could protest, Lily was already picking up sheets of paper. "Look, we can do it like the twins' toys. All the papers with numbers go together. All the papers with graphs go together." Jack watched, torn between amusement and concern, as his meticulous organization was completely undone by Lily's small hands. In minutes, the confidential documents were reorganized into piles that followed a logic only a child would understand. "See? Now it's prettier." Jack was about to gently explain why corporate documents couldn't be sorted like toys when something caught his eye. In one of Lily's piles, 2 apparently unrelated documents were together, one about data usage and another about changes to security protocols. "Lily," he asked slowly, "why did you put these two together?" "Because they have the same little drawing," she said simply, pointing to a similar pattern on both pages. "Like when Emma copies my drawings." Her innocent observation struck Jack like lightning. Of course, the privacy violations weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a systematic change in the security protocols, implemented gradually to go unnoticed. "Lily," Jack smiled, kissing the top of her head, "you're brilliant." "What's brilliant?" "It means someone is really smart and sees things others don't." Lily smiled proudly. "Like when I find the toys Ethan hides under the bed." "Exactly." After tucking Lily back into bed, Jack returned to his office with fresh eyes. Rather than analyzing the documents in his usual linear approach, he looked for patterns and unexpected connections. Using colorful sticky notes, purchased for the kids' art projects, he started mapping out relationships between different departments and decisions. Like a giant puzzle, the full picture began to emerge. The board hadn't just made questionable choices, they had orchestrated a complete shift in the company's philosophy. Peartech, born with a mission to make technology more human, was morphing into something cold and calculating. At 3 a.m., Jack headed to the kitchen for coffee and saw one of Emma's drawings on the fridge. It showed the family. 4 smiling stick figures with hearts floating around them. Staring at that simple picture, Jack had an epiphany. The solution to the crisis wasn't more protocols or purely technical decisions. It was remembering Peartech's original purpose. Technology made by people, for people. Back in his office, he began writing a new plan. It wasn't a typical corporate document. It read more like a story, the kind he'd tell the children before bed. It was the story of a company that had lost its way, but could find it again. A story about balancing innovation with ethics, progress with humanity. By the time the sun rose, Jack had a complete plan, one that didn't sacrifice efficiency, but put people, users, employees, families, at the center of every decision. The sound of small feet padding down the hall announced the kids were awake. Jack stored the documents, now organized by what he fondly called the Lily method, and went to make breakfast. "Mr. Jack," Lily asked as he made pancakes, his new specialty, "did you fix your work problem?" "Thanks to you, sweetheart," he smiled. "Sometimes we need new eyes to see things differently. Like when you helped me see that shadows aren't scary. Exactly like that." Later that day, preparing his presentation to the board, Jack included something unusual. A series of colorful slides, with simplified charts even a child could understand. Because sometimes, he was learning, the deepest solutions come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it takes a 6-year-old reorganizing papers like toys to point us back to our humanity. And sometimes, the biggest corporate crisis can be solved with a little childlike innocence and a whole lot of love. That night, during story time, Jack told a modified version of the brave bear tale. This time, the bear had to save his honey factory, which had forgotten the importance of doing things with care. "And you know what the bear learned," he concluded, seeing the children's eyelids grow heavy with sleep. "What?" Ethan yawned. "That sometimes the best ideas come when we make an organized mess." Lily gave a drowsy smile, clearly proud of her contribution to saving Daddy Jack's company, even though she didn't fully understand what she'd done. And Jack, watching his 3 children drift off, thought about how much his life had changed. Decisions that once seemed so clear, profit above all, efficiency at any cost, now felt hollow compared to a child's smile. Peartech would survive this crisis, he was sure, and it would emerge stronger, more humane, because it now had something no algorithm could calculate, the heart of a family. "Daddy, breakfast is burning," Emma's voice jolted Jack from his thoughts. In the apartment's kitchen, smoke rose from the skillet where he'd tried to make pancakes while mentally reviewing his presentation for the board. "Sorry, princess," he grinned, tossing the charred pancake. "Looks like we'll have cereal today." "Again?" Ethan sighed dramatically. "How you only burn breakfast when you have an important meeting?" Jack paused, harmed the cereal box halfway to the table. When had his kids become so observant? "It's a really important meeting," he admitted, pouring milk into their bowls. "I'm trying to change some things at the company." "Like what?" Lily asked, already dressed in her school uniform. "Well," Jack considered how to explain complex corporate policy to a 6-year-old. "I'm trying to make the company a little more like our family." Lily's eyes lit up with interest. "With story time and everything?" "Something like that," he chuckled. "But first I have to convince a few people." A few hours later, Jack stood before the PearTech board. The virtual conference room was packed. Executives, investors, and shareholders all waiting to hear him explain the radical changes he was proposing. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jack began, adjusting his tie, chosen by Emma that morning, blue with tiny penguins. "3 months ago, I was a different man. A CEO concerned only with numbers, goals, and results." He paused, clicking to the next slide, a picture of his old office, minimalist and sterile. "This was my world, organized, predictable, efficient." Another click showed a current photo of the same space E, now decorated with children's drawings and a small activity table in the corner. "And this is my world now." Murmurs rippled through the virtual meeting. Marcus, his CFO, looked especially uneasy. "Jack," he interrupted, "we understand your personal life has changed, but—" "It's not just about my personal life," Jack gently cut him off. "It's about finally understanding what real innovation is." The next slides revealed surprising data, studies of productivity in companies with strong family policies, statistics on talent retention, success stories of businesses implementing similar changes. "But numbers are only part of the story," Jack continued. "Let me tell you about Anna from our development team." The screen displayed a photo of a programmer everyone recognized. "Anna has 2 young children. Last week, her youngest got sick. In our current setup, she'd have 2 choices, miss work or leave her sick child with a babysitter. Neither is ideal." Jack paused, remembering Lily in the hospital. "But what if Anna could work from home that day? What if we had a space for kids in the office, for days she had to bring them? What if our corporate culture recognized that being a parent isn't a barrier to professional excellence, it's a source of creativity and innovation?" Another click showed the detailed design for a cutting-edge corporate daycare. "This is just the beginning. I'm proposing a revolution in our corporate culture. Flexible schedules, remote work as needed, extended parental leave for both mothers and fathers, an on-site child development center. The costs would be astronomical," one investor cut in. "The cost of doing nothing is higher," Jack countered. "Do you know how many talents we lost last year to companies with more family-friendly policies? 43. Do you know how much it costs to train and integrate each new hire?" The numbers that followed were compelling, but Jack had something more important to add. "But beyond the numbers, let me share something I learned recently." He opened a video showing Lily intently reorganizing documents her own way. "My daughter taught me that sometimes we need to shuffle everything around to see hidden patterns. That's how we uncovered the irregularities in our AI division." The board watched, fascinated, as Jack explained how a child's innocent perspective led to one of the biggest corporate discoveries of the year. Innovation doesn't come from exhausted, worried people torn between work and family. It comes from rested minds, light hearts, people who know they can be top professionals and present parents at the same time. The presentation continued for 2 more hours. Jack gave examples of his personal transformation, how learning to braid hair had improved his patience in tough negotiations, how bedtime stories had honed his communication skills, how organizing toys with the twins had inspired a new project management system. By the end, even the most skeptical investors seemed convinced. "I never thought I'd say this," Marcus admitted, "but I think you're right, Jack," and he hesitated. "I've been missing a lot of my daughter's ballet recitals." When the meeting ended, Jack felt both exhausted and triumphant. He checked the time. There was still time to pick the kids up from school. On the way, he got a message from Jennifer. The board had approved all of his proposed changes. PearTech was officially entering a new era. "How was your meeting, Daddy?" Lily asked when he arrived at the school. "Great," he grinned. "And you know what? It was thanks to you." "Me?" "Yes. Remember when you organized my papers? That helped me see things differently. And now we're going to help other families too." That night, they started a new family tradition, Wednesday movie night. Jack's once immaculate home theater was filled with cushions, blankets, and possibly excessive amounts of popcorn. "Which movie are we watching?" he asked, settling in among the kids. "Mary Poppins," all three answered in unison. As the film began, Jack reflected on how his life had changed. On his phone, emails praising his innovative vision piled up. The press was already calling Peartech the company of the future. But there, with Emma snuggled against one side, Ethan on the other, and Lily excitedly commenting on every scene, Jack knew he'd found something far more valuable than corporate success. He'd found balance. The following Sunday, they started another tradition, picnics in the park. Sarah prepared an elaborate basket, and the children were beaming in their sun hats, self-chosen during a memorable shopping trip. "Daddy," Ethan called while nibbling on a sandwich, "are you still the boss of the company?" "I am," Jack answered, helping Emma with her juice. "Why?" "Because now you play more. Before, you only talked on the phone." Jack's heart squeezed. "That's true. But I found out I can be a good boss and a good dad at the same time. I just had to learn how." "From us?" Lily asked proudly. "From you," he confirmed. "My best teachers." That night, gearing up for another busy week, implementing new policies, remodeling space for the daycare, training staff on the company's new culture, Jack watched the children sleep. Peartech was changing, evolving into something more compassionate and humane. But the biggest change had happened inside him. Because sometimes true balance isn't about compartmentalizing your life into perfectly organized sections. It's about letting the different parts of who you are mix and enrich each other. Like children's drawings on a corporate wall, like penguin pattern ties at serious meetings, like bedtime stories that spark corporate revolutions. Like a man who learned that being a father didn't make him a less efficient CEO, it made him a better leader. The tie covered with little teddy bears wasn't exactly Jack's usual choice for important occasions, but when Emma picked it out especially for the final adoption hearing, he couldn't refuse. "Because teddy bears are family," she explained with the irrefutable logic of a 3-year-old. The Connecticut family court was crowded that morning. In the front row, Sarah, now Peartech's head of human resources, held the twins' hands. Lily sat between her and Jennifer, her legs swinging nervously. "Adoption case number 2025 is 789, the clerk announced. "Petitioner Jack Alexander Pearson." Jack stood, adjusting his teddy bear tie. In recent weeks, he had prepared for this moment in detail. But now, seeing his 3 children, because in his heart they already were his, every rehearsed speech felt inadequate. "Mr. Pearson," Judge Martinez began, "this is a very unusual case. 3 children found in extraordinary circumstances, and an adoption request from a single executive with no prior experience raising kids." Jack nodded, feeling his heart race. "However," she continued, "I have here a substantial stack of testimonies and evidence. Starting with Michelle Thompson. Michelle, the social worker who had initially been so skeptical, stood. Jack noticed her eyes were slightly misty. "Your Honor," she began, "in 15 years as a social worker, I've never witnessed such a profound transformation, both in the children and the adult in question. When I first met Jack Pearson, he was the stereotype of a CEO only focused on work. Today," she paused, looking at the kids, "today he's one of the most devoted, loving fathers I've ever seen. The children have flourished under his care. Lily, who carried a huge burden for her age, is a child again. The twins, who were timid and scared, are now confident and happy." The judge nodded, flipping through more documents. "I also have impressive statements from Peartech employees." "Yes, Your Honor," Jack's lawyer chimed in. "Mr. Pearson not only transformed his personal life, but revolutionized his company to support other families." A video started playing on the courtroom screen. Peartech employees shared their stories. a mother who could now nurse her baby at work, a father who no longer missed his child's school performances, families finally finding work-life balance. PearTech's new corporate daycare is a model in the industry, the lawyer continued, and the family-friendly policies Mr. Pearson has implemented are already being studied by other companies. Impressive, Judge Martinez said. Mr. Pearson, would you like to say anything? Jack stood again, but instead of going to the podium, he walked over to where the children were seated. Your Honor, he began, his voice thick with emotion, a few months ago I thought I knew everything about success. I had built a billion-dollar company, lived in a penthouse, and was respected in Silicon Valley. He paused, smiling at Lily. Then, on a sweltering July afternoon, I found 3 children at an abandoned gas station, and I discovered I knew nothing about what really matters. Jack recounted the awkward first weeks, the improvised stories during the storm, the nights in the hospital with Lily. I learned more about leadership from a 6-year-old organizing toys than in years of MBA. I learned more about courage watching Ethan finally ride a bike without training wheels than in all my corporate negotiations. And I learned more about love watching Emma draw pictures to brighten my office than in my entire previous life. Quiet tears streaked down Sarah's and Jennifer's faces. Even Michelle discreetly dabbed her eyes. These children didn't just let me be a father. They taught me to be human again. And in the process, they changed not only my life, but the lives of hundreds of families through the changes at PearTech. Judge Martinez gave a gentle smile. Lily, Ethan, Emma, would you like to say anything? Lily stood first, her small hand gripping Jack's tightly. When our mum went to heaven, she said clearly, I thought we'd never have a family again, but then we found Mr. Jack, Daddy, and he didn't just give us a home. He learned to braid hair, and he tells stories, and he even burns pancakes just to make us laugh. Warm laughter rippled through the courtroom. I love him, Ethan declared simply, hugging Jack's leg. Emma, not to be outdone, added, and he wears the ties we pick out. Judge Martinez glanced over the documents one last time, but her smile already revealed her decision. Mr. Pearson, your transformation extends far beyond what we normally see in adoption cases. You haven't just created a home for these children, you've created a movement that's helping countless other families. She paused solemnly. It is with great pleasure that I approve this adoption. From today onward, Lily, Ethan, and Emma are officially Pearson. The courtroom erupted in applause. Jack knelt down, pulling all 3 into a tight embrace, not caring about the tears streaming freely down his face. Are we a real family now? Emma asked. We always have been, Jack replied softly. This just makes it official. Months later, the penthouse was unrecognizable. The once minimalist space had become a vibrant home where modern art coexisted with children's drawings, and designer furniture lived in harmony with colorful toys. On the balcony, an impressive new structure stood out, a high-tech treehouse designed by Jack with expert consultation from the children. It featured solar panels, Lily's idea, an LED-lit slide, Ethan's suggestion, and an internal communication system basically consisting of cups connected by string, Emma's insistence, because it was more fun than intercoms. In his office, now decorated with an eclectic mix of corporate awards and kids' crafts, Jack regarded 2 photos side by side. The first showed him accepting the Most Family-Friendly Company of the Year award, with Sarah beside him holding the trophy. PearTech had become a benchmark in family policies, and other Silicon Valley companies were starting to follow suit. The second photo, taken the same day, showed him with the children at the park. Lily teaching the twins how to blow soap bubbles, everyone laughing, perfectly imperfect and completely happy. Daddy, Lily called from the doorway, it's time for my piano lesson. Jack smiled. His oldest daughter had discovered a natural talent for music, and piano lessons had become one of his favorite weekly moments. Coming, sweetheart. Where are the twins? At the playground with Sarah. She said she wants to talk to you later about new guidelines for the corporate daycare. Jack nodded, amazed at how perfectly Sarah had adapted to her role as head of HR, bringing her childcare experience to revolutionize the company's policies. As he followed Lily to the living area, where a piano now took center stage, Jack pondered his true legacy. It wasn't Peartech, though the company was thriving and more humane than ever. It wasn't his fortune, which now had a far more meaningful purpose than simply accumulating more zeros in a bank account. His real legacy was in the little moments: piano lessons with Lily, bike rides with Ethan, painting sessions with Emma. It was in bedtime stories, Sunday picnics, ties with funny prints. His legacy was the love he'd learned to give and receive, the lives he'd helped shape, and the family he'd built, not through blood or obligation, but through choice and love. Taking a seat beside Lily on the piano bench, Jack Pearson, the man once known as Iceheart, smiled as he heard the first notes of a new song. Because sometimes the greatest success isn't measured in dollars or shares. It's measured in smiles, hugs, and tiny moments of pure joy. It's the kind that not only transforms one life, but generations to come. It's what happens when you find 3 children in an abandoned gas station and discover that sometimes the greatest fortunes aren't the ones you make, but the ones you find when you least expect it.